The air in the upscale downtown cafe was thick, with the scent of burnt sugar and self-importance. I held a chipped ceramic mug, the kind that reminded me of my tiny, first-apartment kitchen, and watched him through the steam. My brother, Marcus, the king of other solutions, currently leaning across the mahogany table, his tailored suit jacket pushed back to display a glittering watch I had inadvertently paid for several times over. Honestly, Clara, he drawled, his voice carrying just enough to turn a few heads. You've been here for 20 minutes and you haven't even ordered a proper drink. Just that $6 drip coffee. He paused, letting the silence magnify the judgment. Then came the line, delivered with the practiced cruelty only a sibling can perfect. You can't even afford coffee, can you? Not a real one anyway. Still pinching pennies for that rent minus closet apartment. I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip of my perfectly ordinary, dirt minus cheap black coffee. I smiled a secret, dangerous smile. It was a masterpiece of control. Marcus thought he saw it if he actually saw the reflection of his own impending financial ruin. It's fine, Arcus, I said, keeping my tone soft, almost subservient. Just a way he liked it. I prefer to keep things simple. He laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. Simple. Right. You know, you really should just sell that ridiculous old car. It's embarrassing. It doesn't exactly scream family of other solutions success story, does it? He signaled the waiter, a waiter who probably made more than I let Marcus believe. I didn't ordered a second $14 artisanal latte. He paid with the corporate card of Other Solutions, the company whose fate was about to be decided not by him, but by the woman he just called to pour for a $6- coffee. That dismissiveness was the core of our relationship, the poison pill he had fed the rest of our family years ago. He was just insulting my current income, he was punishing me for the past. After that massive argument, we had the one where I exposed his unethical business move at college. He went into crisis mode. He systematically convinced my parents that my passion for technical architecture was a sign of unhealthy obsession, and my fierce independence was actually instability. He successfully painted me as the unreliable, unemployable eccentric. I lost my family's trust, but I gained something far more valuable, their underestimation. My deliberately simple attire, the faded jeans, the unbranded sweater, the chipped ceramic mug, it was all part of the act, the disguise. He saw Clara, the failure. He didn't see the woman who had spent the last 3 years building a fortress of silence and capital around the very company he was currently running into the ground. Marcus was busy texting, probably setting up a dinner with his next business-school contact. I used the time to mentally review the numbers. Other Solutions is baby. A groundbreaking data analytics firm, valued at over $200 million, thanks to a unique predictive algorithm. He called it the Other Core. I called it my stolen intellectual property. The origin of Other Solutions went back to our final year in the university's accelerated tech program. We were supposed to collaborate on a predictive modeling platform. I did the foundational math, the architectural design that made the core efficient was mine, all mine. He took my drafts, polished the presentation, and when I was hospitalized briefly after a minor accident, he registered the intellectual property solely under his name, claiming I had lost interest and couldn't handle the pressure. The financial damage was nothing compared to the emotional wound, the wound of theft and betrayal. I was sidelined, but I was not defeated. I took the settlement money he grudgingly offered, a pittance, $50. Overland did what he never expected. I invested it, secretly, meticulously, outside his orbit. He finished his text. Look, Clara, I'm only here because Mom insisted. I've got an emergency board meeting later today. Major deal, word talking game minus changer. He leaned in conspiratorially, enforcing a massive acquisition. Project Chimera. It's going to dilute shareholder value temporarily, but it's crucial for growth, and it will require a massive capital call. The majority shareholder might panic. He frowned, then smirked. They're a pain. Actually, This annoying offshore Rust the Phoenix Trust always sending cryptic emails. Totally anonymous. They own 60% and have been nothing but trouble. My lawyers have zeroed in on their weaknesses. We're going to squeeze them out. He took another sip of his latte. He had just delivered his own corporate execution notice, and he was completely unaware. I lowered my eyes, pretending to absorb the complex financial jargon. My mind was crystal clear. The Phoenix Trust. It wasn't a shadowy conglomerate. It wasn't a hedge fund. It wasn't a sovereign wealth fund. The Phoenix Trust registered in the Caymans, with a single beneficiary, zero external debt, and a portfolio consisting of exactly 60% of other solutions, was not non-anonymous entity to me. Yes, Marcus, I said quietly, looking up at him with the $6- smile firmly back in place. I've heard that the Phoenix Trust can be troublesome. He shrugged, already standing up. Well, soon they'll be gone. They'll either fold under the capital call or will find a way to discredit their chairman. Anyway, I gotta run. Look, here's a 20. Get yourself something nice, all right? He placed a $20 bill on the table, a clear, open act of condescension, and walked away without waiting for a reply, his silked eye fluttering behind him. I picked up the 20, folded it neatly, and slipped it into the zippered pocket of my old jeans. I will use this to tip the waiter, I thought. Unlike Marcus, I pay my debts and my bills. I stood up, leaving the chipped ceramic mug behind. The emergency board meeting was in 3 hours. Time to shed the disguise and let the phoenix rise. I didn't take my old car. Instead, I stepped into a black sedan waiting discreetly around the corner, where Marcus would never see it. As the car slid through the traffic, I pulled a small worn leather bound notebook from my bag. It wasn't a diary, it was the original blueprint, the other core. Marcus had brilliantly marketed it as a revolutionary, self-learning matrix. Technically, he wasn't wrong. It was revolutionary. But it was built on my mathematical architecture, the Claire A-prime algorithm. I had named it that back then, foolishly believing we were partners. The injustice of that IP theft had fueled me for 3 years. Every financial decision, every late night, every moment of self-denial was driven by one cold, clear objective to reclaim my intellectual child and restore my reputation. Marcus had not just stolen my work, he had stolen my future, forcing me out of the industry with his lies. But sometimes, when you were forced to rebuild from ashes, you construct a much stronger foundation than the original. My original $50,000 settlement had been the seed. I used it not to launch a rival tech company, but to fund a niche, high-risk financial firm focusing on undervalued corporate distress. It was remote, quiet, and completely off Marcus's radar. The key to my rapid, silent growth was the simple fact that I was operating with the clarity and truthlessness of someone who had nothing left to lose. And then came the biggest opportunity. Marcus was right about one thing: the Phoenix Trust currently owns 60% of other solutions. But he didn't know how that acquisition started. He certainly didn't know about the secret weapon woven into the company's DNA. I flipped the page in my notebook to a faded photocopy of Other Solutions' initial shareholders' agreement. Marcus's initial capital came from 2 places: his bank loan and a major seed investment from our estranged Uncle Robert. Uncle Robert had been a quiet investor, a brilliant but eccentric man who had always been skeptical of Marcus's flashiness. Uncle Robert knew. When he read the news of Marcus launching Other Solutions with my algorithm, he didn't confront Marcus. Instead, he made a quieter, more devastating move. Just before his untimely death from a sudden illness, and before Marcus could consolidate total control, Uncle Robert subtly amended the bylaws. A solid 10% of the company, and assigned it, not to a family member, but to an anonymous holding account with one unique clause. The beneficiary could only be Clara if and when she proved capable of managing it without Marcus's influence. I found out a year after his passing. It was a lawyer's cryptic letter, a silent apology, and a weapon handed down from beyond the grave. That 10% stake was my entry point. It made me an insider without Marcus knowing. I used the dividends from that 10%. The very money Marcus thought he had kept me from to start the initial covert by minus up of shares, meticulously hiding my transactions behind the newly established Phoenix Trust. I wasn't just acquiring other solutions, I was fulfilling Uncle Robert's last brilliant act of familial justice. I knew the company's financial structure better than Marcus did because I had access to the minority shareholder reports. I saw the over-minus leverage on, the risky cash flow management, and the reckless pursuit of expansion that Marcus mistook for genius. I had been the ghost in his machine for 2 years, quietly accumulating, consolidating, waiting for the perfect moment. The Chimera Project Marcus's Hail Mary acquisition was that moment. It was designed to save his ego, but it would destroy the company's underlying value. He thought he was trapping the majority shareholder. He was. Instead, walking right into my fully prepared execution chamber, I closed the notebook. The car was pulling up to the gleaming, all-minus glass headquarters of Ether Solutions, the building that Marcus considered his monument. I need to be dropped off 2 blocks away, I instructed the driver. I have to make a quick change. My driver simply nodded. He was accustomed to the peculiar instructions of the chairman of the Phoenix Trust, in the back of the sedan. I swapped my faded sweater and jeans for a razor-sharp, custom-fitted dark suit. I traded the cheap ceramic mug for a leather briefcase containing all the documentation necessary to end Marcus's career. The transformation was complete. Clara the failure was gone. The chairman of the Phoenix Trust was ready to walk into the fire she had carefully prepared. I walked the final 2 blocks to the Ether Solutions headquarters. With every step, the persona of the Phoenix Trust chairman settled over me. The bespoke suit felt like armor. The heels clicking on the pavement sounded like a countdown. The building's lobby was a monument to Marcus's excess. Polished chrome, unnecessarily complex water features, and a giant LED screen cycling through Marcus's smiling face and the company's inflated mission statement. I bypassed the reception, flashing an access card that, according to the system, belonged to a senior external financial consultancy role I had created for myself 3 years ago, allowing me limited, anonymous access to others' internal financial logs. In the elevator, ascending to the executive floor, I pulled up the latest, last-minute filing Marcus had made. It was the prospectus for Project Chimera. The acquisition itself was flawed, a desperate, overvalued grab for market share, but the financing was the truly insidious part. Marcus hadn't just initiated a capital call to dilute shareholders, he had secured a massive, short-term bridge loan from a relatively small, aggressive lending institution, Atlas Financial. The key detail was in the fine print. If the Chimera project acquisition was approved at today's board meeting, the bridge loan would convert to a long-term, high-interest corporate bond secured by Ether Core's IP, Clara-prime algorithm. If the acquisition was rejected or halted, the entire bridge loan, $40 million, would be immediately payable in full, triggering a default clause that would effectively hand control of Ether Solutions to Atlas Financial's creditors. Marcus wasn't just trying to squeeze out the Phoenix Trust, he was gambling the entire company. He was betting that the board, desperate to avoid a catastrophic default, would rubber-stamp his plan even if it was destructive long-term. I smiled, a genuine and predatory grin that felt wonderful on my face. Marcus had just made the rookie mistake of forgetting who taught him to play. He had built a prison, but HED also left the key in the lock. I exited the elevator onto the executive floor. The air was tense. Marcus's inner circle, a handful of yes-men executives, were hovering outside the main boardroom, whispering nervously. Marcus himself was holding court near a glass wall, phone pressed to his ear, his earlier condescending calm replaced by a jittery aggression. He saw me. Clara? The external consultant. His eyes widened slightly, then narrowed in suspicion. Clara? What are you doing here? I thought you were simplifying things. He glanced down at my suit, a flicker of professional envy crossing his face. Nice suit. Renting, I assume? No, Marcus, I replied, my voice deep and measured, completely devoid of the subservient tone I used in the cafe. I bought it. It fits the occasion. He dismissed me with a wave of his hand. Whatever. This is a private meeting. Confidential. Go wait in the outer office. I'm afraid that won't be possible, I said. Marcus lowered his phone. Look, I don't have time for this. This meeting is for the board and key stakeholders only. The fate of the company is about to be decided. Indeed, I agreed, taking a step closer. And that's why I'm here. A nervous executive stepped forward. Mr. King. She has an access card. What is her designation? Marcus hesitated, trying to remember the name of the consultant his assistant had filed away. She's a junior analyst from the outside. Irrelevant. Get her out of here. Just then, the main double doors of the boardroom opened, and Mr. Hemmings, the grizzled, long-serving independent director, emerged. He was looking pale. Marcus, we have a problem. Hemmings said, his voice strained. There are complications regarding the majority shareholders' proxy vote. Marcus's face tightened. The Phoenix Trust. What about them? They can't just stop a capital call. They haven't. Hemmings swallowed hard. They've done something else. They sent a representative. The emergency board meeting is now ready to begin, but the majority shareholder has designated their proxy. He looked directly at me. The representative for the Phoenix Trust, Hemmings announced to the stunned executives, is here. I offered Marcus a small, cold, professional smile, the exact opposite of the $6- smile from the cafe. I opened my briefcase, but not two present papers. I pulled out a simple, expensive, silver fountain pen. Before we begin, Marcus, I said, my voice cutting through the silence, let's talk about that $40 million debt to Atlas Financial, because I'm in a position to save you from it or bury you with it. I walked past him and into the boardroom. The executives, and especially Marcus, were frozen in the hallway, the realization of his catastrophic mistake dawning on him like a slow, painful sunrise. I took the seat reserved for the majority shareholders' proxy. The room was heavy with the silence of disbelief. Marcus finally stumbled in, his face white, followed by the four other board members: Mr. Hemmings, independent; Miss Lynn, CFO; Marcus, loyalist; Mr. Davies, CTO, brilliant but marginalized; and Mrs. Albright, legal counsel. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. This is insane, Clara. This is a joke. You can't be the Phoenix Trust. You were just drinking a $6- coffee 2 hours ago. That coffee was very good. Marcus, I noted calmly, opening my briefcase and pulling out the official documentation bearing the seal of the Phoenix Trust. I am the chairman and sole beneficiary of that trust. The one you just promised to squeeze out. Please take your seat. We have an emergency board meeting to run. Marcus was spluttering. You bought 60% of my company with what? Pocket change? Lies. Where is your proof? Where is your slid a simple, embossed document across the table to Mrs. Albright, the legal counsel. The proof of ownership has been verified by 3 independent legal firms this morning, all of whom you regularly as Mrs. Albright. You may also refer to the original Other Solutions Shareholders Agreement, specifically Article 14, Section B, Section 3. Albright's eyes scanned the documents. As she hit the designated section, her face fell. It was the clause Uncle Robert had added. The weapon of familial justice. The documents are in order, Marcus, she confirmed in a low voice. The Phoenix Trust does, indeed, possess 60% of the voting shares, and the designated proxy for the chairman is Ms. Clara King. The air went out of Marcus. He collapsed into his chair, looking like a man who had just watched his house burn down. Now that the formalities are over, I began addressing the board. Let's discuss the matter at hand. Project Chimera and the associated Atlas Financial Bridge loan. Marcus found his voice. You reject this, and the company defaults. You'll lose everything. Your 60% will be worthless. He was trying to panic the room. That's where you made your second grave miscalculation, Marcus, I said, looking specifically at Ms. Lynn, the CFO. You believe you created a financial lock-approved chimera and dilute value. or reject it and trigger a $40 million default. You only accounted for two parties' other solutions on Atlas Financial. I opened a second file, sliding copies of invoices and short-termed ed agreements around the table. What you failed to notice, Marcus, is that for the past 6 months, the Phoenix Trust has been quietly and legally acquiring the small, non-bank liabilities of other solutions. Supplier invoices, short-term unsecured bank loans, outstanding vendor payments all bought up at a slight premium, aggregated, and transferred to a single holding company. Ms. Lin picked up the documents and scanned the totals. Her eyes widened, realizing the total debt I now controlled. The Phoenix Trust is not just your majority shareholder, I stated, resting my hand on the table. The Phoenix Trust is also your largest non-bank creditor, holding over $15 million in aggregated, short-term debt, which I can call due immediately, independent of the Atlas loan. I leaned forward. So if you approve the destructive Chimera project, I will vote against it and sue for dilution. If you reject the Chimera project, I will pay off the Atlas Bridge loan at a substantial discount, making the required capital call unnecessary, and then proceed to call in my own aggregated debts, triggering a controlled bankruptcy and restructuring. You see, Marcus, you are out of options. The company is mine to save or mine to restructure. Marcus was trembling. He looked at me, not with contempt, but with utter despair. Why? Why do this? It's family. We built this together. No, Marcus, I corrected him. I built the core of this. You stole it and used it to erase me. This is not about family. This is about justice, integrity, and the fiduciary duty I now hold to the staff and original vision of this company. I reached the climax of my move. I looked at the independent directors, Mr. Hemmings and Mr. Davies. My first action as chairman of the Phoenix Trust is to call for a vote to immediately terminate Marcus King as chief executive officer for gross negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and corporate fraud. The vote passed for first. Marcus's vote was the only dissent. Everyone in the room, especially Marcus, expected me to install myself as the new CEO. He braced himself for my victory speech. For the final personal humiliation, I looked across the table at Mr. Davies. The quiet, brilliant chief technology officer, the man who had always been marginalized by Marcus's aggressive marketing schemes, but whose team was the only thing keeping other core running smoothly. Mr. Davies, I said, effective immediately. The Phoenix Trust appoints you as the new chief executive officer of Other Solutions. Your first ask is to stabilize the engineering team and begin auditing the Chimera project for immediate cancellation. Davies stared at me, speechless. I turned back to Marcus, who was dumbfounded. I didn't do this to take your chair, Marcus. I did this to save my algorithm, save the staff who believed in the technology, and to correct the historical injustice of having my work stolen and my name dragged through the mud. My only role here, Marcus, is oversight. I am the new chairman of the board. The lioness doesn't lead the hunt from the front. She ensures the pack is protected. I looked at him one last time, my eyes completely cold. You should have let me have my $6- coffee in peace. Marcus was escorted out of the boardroom by the two security guards Mr. Hemmings had discreetly summoned. He left not with a bang, but with a defeated whimper, muttering threats that sounded hollow even to his own ears. The remaining board members, the new CEO, Mr. Davies, Mrs. Albright, and Mr. Hemmings, looked at me with a mixture of awe and caution. Congratulations, Ms. King, Mr. Hemmings said, breaking the silence. That was a masterful maneuver. Thank you. Now, let's ensure Other Solutions survives the damage, I replied, turning my focus to Mr. Davies. E.O. Davies, your first priority is to issue a company-wide statement emphasizing stability, reassuring our key clients, and ensuring the engineering team is rewarded for their loyalty to the technology, not the former management. I addressed Mrs. Albright. Mrs. Albright, you will begin immediate legal proceedings to formally sever ties with Marcus King, detailing the grounds for gross negligence. But we will hold back on the fraud charges for now. I want him to be financially contained, not personally destroyed. That was the difference. Marcus sought total annihilation. I sought restoration. 10 minutes later, I stood alone in what used to be Marcus's corner office. The vast glass wall offered a sweeping view of the city, a view I had earned, but didn't want to occupy. Marcus suddenly burst back in, bypassing the new security protocol. His face was blotchy, his tie undone. He wasn't the king of other solutions anymore, he was just Marcus. Scared and desperate, he appealed to the last thing he had left. "Clara, please. It's me. Your brother. The one you played with in the backyard. We're family. Remember Mom and Dad? Don, True, and me. Please, for the sake of our childhood. Don't do this." I walked over to the desk, picking up the 2 file folders I had brought, the 2 options for his future. "Marcus," I said, my voice steady, "you lost the right to appeal to family the moment you looked me in the eye and lied to our parents, claiming I was unstable so you could steal my IP. You traded your heart for a startup and love for evaluation." However, I continued, placing the 2 folders before him. "Unlike you, I don't believe in total destruction. I believe in rewriting the relationship." I pushed the second folder towards him. "This is the only deal I will offer. If you sign this, you get to keep a small, protected portion of your liquidated shares, enough to live comfortably, though certainly not lavishly. You avoid criminal charges. You avoid public shame beyond the loss of the CEO title." Marcus snatched the folder, his eyes darting through the terms. "What's the catch?" "What do you want?" "The catch is the price of redemption," I stated. I pointed to 3 clauses. First, public acknowledgement. You will issue a public, non-negotiable statement acknowledging that the core intellectual property, the Clara-prime algorithm, was my original design, and my contribution was systematically marginalized too. Reparations. You will immediately pay back the original $50,000 settlement, plus accrued interest, to a designated charity focused on mentoring young women in STEM fields. Third, family reparations. You will attend a minimum of 12 months of mandatory family therapy sessions, paid for by your liquidated assets, aimed at repairing the damage you caused to our parents and our relationship. Marcus looked up, aghast. "Therapy? You want my apology and my heart? You're rating my company for mandatory family counseling. I'm trading the life you thought you wanted for the life you need." I clarified. "The $50,000 you stole was never about the money from me, Marcus. It was about the validation, the respect, and the familial honesty you took. You can keep your little bit of money, your financial heart, but the company you built on lies. Your financial love is gone." He looked at the pen in my hand, the expensive silver fountain pen. He knew this was the only way to avoid total annihilation. He looked at the family name on the contract, his eyes filling with a genuine, desperate sorrow. Slowly, agonizingly, Marcus King signed the rewrite agreement. I took the signed contract, sealing it in my briefcase. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't offer comfort. The rewrite had begun, but the healing was his to undertake. I walked out of the office, past the humming servers that contained the Clara-prime algorithm, now finally secured. The city lights were coming on, bright and beautiful, no longer a monument to his ego, but a landscape of my quiet victory.